Torah Life Ministries, come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Because I feel it's such an important topic, and it's really about finding the right mate, and also what to do if you're already in a situation where you're unequally yoked in your marriage. And the whole idea of being a leader of Yahweh and being a man of Yahweh and not falling into the trap of the enemy. And I would suggest here today that the biggest trap the enemy uses is the greatest weakness of man, and that is a woman. And we see since the beginning of time with Adam and Eve how a woman deceived a man. You see, Eve was deceived by food. She was deceived by the look of an apple. She was deceived by the outer appearance of a fruit from a tree that Yahweh made beautiful. But really, it was her desire to have certain wisdom and knowledge so she can use it to her advantage. So it would appear that the way through her deception, and the enemy knew this, was through an outer appearance of the way something looked, but it was really something much more that came from an inner desire, a natural thing, that a way she was built, so to say, or designed. See, when Yahweh had Adam and Eve, he took the female out of the male and created the female. It was not her desire to be of a hierarchy. It was her desire to be in control. And it's a natural female tendency, desire to be in control. And when Yahweh punished her, he took away that. And he part of her punishment was that she would have to submit to this hierarchy and submit to her husband, submit to the male. So that is the female, and how the female got herself in trouble through her eyes and the out of appearance of something that looked good, but it was really her desire or the way she was created that really got her into trouble. And I want to focus on what gets us into trouble as men, and how the enemy uses that. So men are attracted to a beauty and the beautiful appearance of a female, but it's really the man's natural desire, the way he was created, to procreate with as many women as possible, and young, vibrant women. That is really the deep down desire of the way the man was created. And in the animal kingdom, you see this with the alpha male, and is the one that had the women and had the children and so on. I had the females, not the women, but the females. But but it was the outer covering of that, the eyes and the beauty of something. With Eve, it was the fruit, the beautiful fruit. I'm sure it looked like the most beautiful thing ever, that fruit on that tree. And I take a personal liking to it when I see fruit on a tree. But it's the woman and the woman's body that a man has a certain attraction to. And the enemy knows that and used that in a deceptive way to fulfill the man's true desire. See, in the days back then, a man could have many wives and many children. It was the quite culture, it was normal, and usually the alpha male back then wasn't necessarily the strongest male. It was the most powerful male from a kingdom status. So the king could have a harem. The king could have 7 or 8 wives. The king could pretty much walk down the street and see somebody who he found attractive, and have somehow, some way, through his power, her join his harem, and he could further mate with that woman and have offspring with that woman. It's important to note that the desire was for the male to procreate his offspring. That was it. So the number one goal of the man back then, even though the kingdom had the power to sleep around and stuff, other than maybe Solomon, which is another story, but it was the ultimate goal for the man, yes, to have many women, but it wasn't really for selfish reasons as much as for the children to be fruitful and multiply, so to say. But then you saw something happen and a change where it was alpha male was no longer just the people that were kings and given the power. The alpha male now became those that had money or status and were able to take care of more than one woman below them. So they were allowed this, I don't know what word you want to use, to be able to procreate, be fruitful and multiply. They had the means to do so. So then we went from the power status, or the alpha male being the king, now to the alpha male being the one with money. Well, today's time, as we fast forward many times, the desire is still there, but the alpha male today, well, previously in the past, the alpha male was the one that, yes, had the money, but really was the strongest one. And this is where we see the example of the animal kingdom, the alpha male being those who are the strongest. Those are the ones that got the woman, and those are the ones the woman desired to be with because they wanted their offspring to be strong as well. So there's two ways to look at this. There's this selfish way of the sexual revolution and all this stuff, which King Solomon might have been guilty of, this selfish desires and so on, where he'd be willing to put his relationship with Yahweh in risk just for the pleasure of sleeping with somebody. But then there's the desire to just have offspring and being fruitful and multiply. And the woman wants to find the most strongest male to do so. And the man wants to, have as many women to do so, have as many children as possible. That's the deep inner desire of the man, besides his superficial out of the selfish desires of just having the pleasure. So now the alpha male had become in this time the strongest male. So it wasn't necessarily the one with the status of a king. It wasn't necessarily the one with the status of money. It was now the alpha male was the one with the status who was the strongest male, the one that had the most strength, not necessarily the most power from a political standpoint. And what's interesting is it switched because the one that had the money, who was the previous alpha male, who was able to provide, has now become a beta male, meaning that a woman would still be attracted because she could provide for the kids, but ultimately her sense and desire was to be with the strongest male, or the alpha male, to have the healthiest child. And then we fast forward to a time like today. And the true alpha male is the one that has the cleverness or the wisdom, there's just the mind. And this is what's the attraction is of the woman who wants to have the children today, the one that has the right mind to make the woman believe her desires are being fulfilled from a child standpoint or birth-giving standpoint. He could provide, he's strong, he's clever, he has the power sometimes of a status. This is why sometimes women desire to be with celebrities, because they have a certain power or so on. And the shift has come where now in society, the woman will desire still to be with the strongest male or the most clever male that appears to be the wisest, because the stronger men aren't necessarily the alpha males anymore. And the kings or the people with the status of a king or those that had money have now been outwitted, and they themselves have become the beta males to provide for the woman and the offspring of the stronger male. And this is the situation where we put ourselves into today. And this is all on a physical understanding of relationships. And we're going to look at how the enemy uses this to deceive men this day. Yahweh told us in the scriptures to be fruitful and to multiply. To be fruitful and multiply. And stick with me here with what I'm saying, because this is important to understand. So to be fruitful and multiply, and this means to have the means to take care of many children and to have many children. Because of the laws that we have today in this country, and because of the cultural way society has went, it is not legal or normal or accepted that a man would have more than one wife at one time. And this necessarily wasn't the way it was at the beginning, when a man was trying to populate the earth, and men were having many wives and many children. And the idea of that today is taboo or something like this. And this isn't about this talk isn't about about polygamy or anything like that. That's another topic. But the point is, the desire of offspring was always in Yahweh's plan for man and for women. And how we got that offspring and how many offspring we had was always in a desire. Now, in today's world, the enemy has deceived people to not want offspring, to not want children. So men and women are doing everything possible to get through life without having children. At least the deception of the enemy is making that happen. And the sadness of all this is, you see other cultures around, let's take Islam, for example, where they're still a true understanding of scripture is to be fruitful and multiply, and they're having 10 children, 9 children, 8 children, while believers today are deceived not to have any children. And then the non-believers are even worse, because not only are they not trying to have children, it's impossible to have children because you got men laying with men and women laying with women, and it's just a down spiral from there. And I really pray this doesn't go over your head, because we're going to see how divorce and remarriage and how the enemy's working this is creating an issue. So the point being is, we must remember the true inner deep desire of Yahweh for man, and man with the seed, and women with the offspring, and what the initial deep desires is. Wiping away or taking away for a moment the selfish desires of each one of us from a sexual standpoint, to think about offspring. Now, we could take the animal kingdom and look at this as a great example. And this is important for young men of Yah to understand, and for men everywhere to understand, men that have gotten out of marriage and so on, to understand how the enemy works. So, I'm sharing this here with you here because this is for men only, special thing for men only, and men need to understand this. So when we look at the animal kingdom in nature, the female is looking for the alpha male to have a child with. But in the world today, the female is still looking for the alpha male, but wants her child raised by the beta male. So she wants to procreate with the strongest man, but she acknowledges that that strongest man might not be the best man to raise her offspring. So after she has a child with the strongest man, she'll go and seek the beta male, or let's say the richest man, to raise her child. And because the court system today actually supports this, we have all these mixed families and these single mothers and all this children with just without parents and fathers and so on. It's just completely against what Yahweh desired and what Yahweh wanted. And it's we've gotten away from Yahweh's plan, his goals, his ideas, and everything he wants. So getting back to the animal kingdom. So when an animal is in heat, she knows, or female animal knows how to attract the male. And she knows instinctively what male to attract. It's not necessarily manipulation, it's nature. She knows how to make her appearance a certain way to attract the person she wants. Some people might call this flirting, but we cannot forget the eyes, and how the eyes are the windows to open us up to our heart and our mind and what we're seeing and what's connected to them. And the female animals in this world know how to communicate without speaking to the males that they are in heat and ready to conceive. The male, they're just looking to make as many children as possible. They're not necessarily looking for the alpha woman or something to say like this. And it's a weakness of men maybe to see not to consider these things. But then we're talking about animals here. They just want to make babies. And they don't even know what the concept of making a baby. It's their natural desire to do this, and a baby would be the result. But when it comes to humans, there's so much to consider, because a baby's born into this world, and there's a lot more responsibility that you have as a human, and then as you do as an animal or a stray cat. You have a lot more responsibility as a human when you have a child. And if you're spiritual, if you're a believer in Yahweh, you definitely have a big responsibility when children are in the world and children are around. But here's what the enemy does, and how the enemy uses this, uses the idea of being fruitful and multiplying to deceive the man and getting himself in big trouble. And I'm warning you out there so you understand what's happening out there. So when you choose who you are going to cohabitate with, make your life with, and marry and have children with, you'll be able to use this and make a much wise decision. We need to pray about this and think about this and understand the idea of equally yoked. And sadly, because of the eye gate, because of the vision part of this, I see a lot of men taking on a Solomon-like idea and getting themselves in complete danger by doing against what Yahweh wants us to do in finding somebody who loves Yahweh. They're not being equally yoked. Solomon was put himself in great danger. And many men are putting themselves in great danger too by letting their eyesight get them in trouble. And it wasn't just Solomon. Samson, who was to a degree the greatest alpha male to ever live from a strength standpoint, put himself in tremendous danger because of his eye gate and letting things get in that shouldn't have got in. And the deception of the woman, the female, that was controlled by the enemy with the use of the eyes and the eternal desire of a man, Delilah. And it didn't start with her, because he just had all these issues prior to her as well. And his eyes got him in trouble. And wasn't it interesting at the end when Yahweh took away from him the thing that got him in the greatest danger, his eyesight? Very interesting. And we see this today. The enemy is using these deception by these women who are trying to survive and still try to find the alpha male. So regardless of what morality says today, a woman is still going to desire the alpha male. And men, you need to put yourself in a position where you're an alpha male of Yahweh, able and willing to provide for children, finding a wife of Yahweh, a wife that Yahweh has prepared her heart to be to seek his goals and desires, and not controlled by the enemy to go astray. And it's something that needs to be prayed about on both parts. But the women today, we need to be careful from. And this is where the idea of modesty is such an important thing. Because Yahweh showed us from the beginning, when he covered Adam and Eve with the tunics, the importance of covering and the eye gate and this whole issue we have here today. Women today are undressing in the world, and it's deceiving and confusing men. Because when a woman puts on makeup and has flowing hair and it's literally showing her so-called private parts. And I don't know why I call it private parts, because they're not private. What she's revealing to the world, and she might as well have a big sign right on her forehead, is, I am ready to mate and have children. Now, because of the true reality of the world, she really doesn't want to have children, so she's probably on some contraceptive or something. But that's not the message she's given. She's given the message, I am ready to mate and want to have children. And she deceives certain men to think like, oh, and you're the one I'm interested in. And men, and sadly even men of Yahweh, without thinking or praying about it or understanding these warning signs which I'm giving you, will go and find these women and be deceived and end up getting in a relationship with these women, making babies with these women, and then finding their true colors. Modesty is so important because it's this, the eyes. It's deception of the eyes. This is where I call it fake up. Let's look at fake up and high heels for a moment, because people don't understand the danger of these things. Some people say the weapons of mass destruction are some big bombs that will destroy nations. I say no, the real weapons of mass destruction are high heels and lipstick. It's a deception to think a man is finding the woman of Yahweh, but no, he's finding a woman that's controlled by the enemy to deceive the man, have the man's seed, and then just destroy the man in court, his livelihood and everything. And the suicide rate amongst men, divorced men, is higher than any other type of situation in the world because of this trap by the enemy. So instead of Yahweh's goal of being fruitful and multiplying, now you have men destroying themselves, killing themselves. And we look at how the enemy's doing this, how the enemy's using this. So there's only one time a month during a certain time where a woman takes on a look where she's ready to conceive and have a child. And there's only a few days a month where that's physically possible to happen, where a woman is able to conceive. Only a few days a month. And if you're in a monogamous relationship with a wife of Yahweh and you're a man of Yahweh, you're going to pick up on those signs, you're going to know those signs, and you're also going to understand chemistry enough to know that, okay, you're ovulating, now's the time. But the sign a woman gives in her face, even her smell, will send signals, just like the cats in nature, that it's my time to procreate. Come on, let's go and let's do this. And the man will be attracted to his wife, and they will make a baby, and it's a beautiful thing. The deception of the enemy through the face painting of the women today makes it appear that that sign is every day. Yes, the fake up and the face painting that women wear today is to mimic that sign that they are ready to procreate and make a baby. The rosy cheeks, the big red lips, the big open eyes, this is all to mimic the idea of it's ready time to conceive, let's go. And then the body position that the high heels put the woman in, the provocative position that it puts the woman in, is sending a message to men. You might as well just have a big sign. They might as well have a big sign in their forehead. Is, I'm available. I want to have your baby, and let's go and do this. And a man that is not well grounded in Yahweh and does not have this information will be deceived by that type of woman. And this is what happens. But then reality kicks in, and we get into a situation where we are today. So we need to be careful about this and understanding this. So men, what type of women are you willing to or going to find to procreate with? And if you don't want to have a child, if you're not interested in having a child, you might need to question, well, why do you want to even be in a relationship? Or what is your relationship with Yahweh? Now, if you've been married for 30 years and you get out of a marriage and you're 70 years old, maybe you had already 5 children, you don't want to procreate. And maybe you don't want to be alone in your golden age. So maybe you just want to have a companion. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But for a young man that still is the so-called age bearing of procreating, what is your desire and what is your goal to getting in a relationship with somebody who does not have that desire to have children? If you don't want to have children, it's more of an attitude not of children of Yahweh, but of the world, and more of a thinking of the conditioning of the world. So we need to be careful with that. So the bottom line is, what kind of woman are you looking for marriage and for getting into a relationship with? Extremely, extremely one of the most important decisions you're going to make in your life, and not only from a worldly viewpoint, but from a spiritual viewpoint. Men, you were designed to be leaders of your house. Men, you were designed to be a leader of your family. And if you get into a relationship with a woman that's being controlled by the enemy, you are asking for danger. Because I'm here to tell you that just as a woman can have this sign on her that says, I'm available, let's go make a baby. If you have a man with spiritual eyes and you're focusing on spiritual things, you're going to see a different sign in that woman. You're going to see a sign in that woman that says, stay away from me, I am danger. So when the average worldly man, non-believer, is chasing these women that are being controlled by the enemy all around town, you're going to be able to walk the other way and say, that's not the type of woman I want for a wife. It's important you understand that. And we take this example all from out the scriptures. Remember, when Abraham was looking for a wife for Isaac, he said, don't go to those women. Don't go to those women. I don't want him to take a wife from these women, or from this nation, from these women, because he knew how they were. He knew how they were. Modesty is a great, great, clear sign that where the woman's truly at, because it's an outer appearance thing. Now, it's not everything. There can be deception out there. You might meet a woman who's modest and she was very deceptive. The enemy is very sly and tricky. But your first defense of even talking to a woman, if you're looking for a relationship, should be her modesty. If she's not modest, 100%, she's wearing a sign that says, I am danger, I am controlled by the enemy, get away from me. And it might not be on purpose. She just might be part of the culture in the society, and she just might have been sucked into it, and that's the way she was brought up. But it is not your job, men, to be missionary dating and changing people and so on. That's not your job. Your job is to lead, but that's to lead your wife and your family, not to lead these strange women of the world to come to know Yahweh. Let Yahweh change their heart and prepare that woman for you. Be wise in your thinking. Don't give these type of women the upper hand. You're just asking for danger and asking for trouble. You want to have protection around your marriage and around your home. You don't want the enemy to get in. And when you're inviting a woman like this who's controlled by the enemy, you're inviting the enemy in the house also. So be wise in your decision making. And modesty is the first gate to understand that. There are other signs and other things that you must become aware of and you must understand as you're seeking the right person that Yahweh wants you to be with. For example, we look at the idea of headship and hierarchy and respect for elders and so on. So look at the relationship between this potential partner that you might be attracted to with her father. If she's not willing to honor her father, what makes you think she'll honor you? Definitely something that needs to be considered when you're looking for the right person. And I would suggest or submit that every relationship, or not every, but a majority of the relationships that fail from a scriptural standpoint, somewhere there's a break or an issue with the daughter-father relationship, and that has somehow spilled over into, or that's a warning sign, pretty much. It's a warning sign. There are other signs as well, and I'm all believing in repentance and changing and everything else. I'm all believing in that, but you gotta think about not only the way the woman's dressing, but what she's doing to her body. Does she have tattoos? Does she have a lot of piercings and all this stuff? Maybe she's repented. Well, tattoos can be removed, earrings can be taken out, and all this stuff. But what is this woman made of? And why has she done these things? And I know a woman could be in the darkest place in this world and come out of that just like men and be beautiful children of Yahweh. But these are all warning signs that men should not avoid when you're looking to get into a relationship. Modesty is not only an issue of dress, it's an issue of the heart. Modesty consists of also in the way we act. The way, when it comes to a woman, is the way a woman honors her parents. It's the way a woman honors her own body and treats herself and thinks about herself. So there's many different levels of modesty other than just the appearance. So men, if you are seeking to get married, you must consider these things. This is why head covering is such a great distinguishment of a woman who's truly covered by Yahweh, looking to be covered by her man. And again, don't be deceived, because there might be some modest women out there that haven't figured this out. But for the most part, if a woman is dressed modestly and she's not letting her hair or her sexiness flowing all over the place, and you're looking at these other warning signs, you're going to be in a much closer place to putting yourself in a situation that's healthy. Now, there are situations and times where we don't have these warning signs, and when we're young and dumb, we don't know these different things, and we're not taught these different things in the world today, which is a very sad thing. Because for me, I had to go through the mistakes of everything I'm talking about and be a victim of everything I'm talking about because of my own lack of understanding of these things. And after getting divorced and after making many mistakes that I'm trying to save you from here, I was blessed to find a woman of Yahweh who has the desires of Yahweh and not the selfishness of the world. But I don't want you to have to go through what I went through to get there. I want you to understand how to make that decision right the first time. Now, there are many people out there, and this is a problem that I see. There are many men out there that have made the choice incorrectly, have been deceived through immodesty and the eye gate, and have ended up in a relationship with a woman that is controlled by the enemy. And now they're married or something, and for whatever reason, the true colors are revealed, and that woman might desire to go and take the children through the court system today and go find a different alpha male or a beta male or something else, or whatever the case may be. Point being is, you're alone, you're separated, you're divorced, and what do? Don't make the same mistake. Don't make the same mistake and find the same type of woman. And apparently men seem to keep running back to the same vomit and making the same mistakes and finding the same type of woman. Don't make the same mistake. But it's extremely important. Now, the question might come to some of you that are listening right now. What if you're not divorced, but you're married to a woman that's being controlled by the enemy? How do you handle that? And I find that to be one of the most dangerous, sad situations a man could actually put himself in. And I say put himself in because he's made this choice to put himself in there. Does that mean he has to stay there? Does that mean that, it's okay to get divorced? Because people's, one of my scariest things when I ended up getting divorced was, I don't want, me being a speaker, I don't want other people to think that, well, he got a divorce, so it must be okay. It's not okay. Yahweh doesn't like divorce. Yahweh, what he put together should not be put apart. But then we got to think what Yahweh put together. Yahweh didn't put you together with, a woman being controlled by the enemy. You chose that against Yahweh's will. So keep that in mind. But is there excuse for divorce? Well, in scripture, we see the idea of the oath that's made to Yahweh and keeping your word and trusting him. And when an oath was made, it could not be overturned. And if you made that decision before Yahweh to be the caretaker and the leader of this woman, some people might say, well, that was conditional. If she did this, and if she followed me, and if she did this, this, and this. I'm not one for the conditional marriage status, because I'm one for a conditional status to Yahweh. Because the conditional status of the marriage is another story. Because we need to not say, well, if this woman acts this way, I'm going to act this way. Or it'd be easy to love this woman if she submitted to me. Or when a woman says, well, I could submit to him if he does this and if he does that. And I'm here to say, regardless of how she acts, regardless of how you act, we need to honor the commitment we made to Yahweh and be men and women of Yahweh, regardless of how the other person is acting. And there's no excuse for acting out of your place of where you should be. So men, if the woman you're with is not being submissive to you, take it to Yahweh, because he's the one you have the oath with. He's the one you made that vow to. Take it to Yahweh and let him take care of that situation the way he sees fit. And that might be where he'll change her heart, or something might happen there. It might be that she'll go astray or something, and it might end up in divorce. It might not, but that's not your decision. That's his decision. That's between you and him. The point is, if you find the right woman, you don't have to change her or try to change her, because she'll be right for you and right for the situation. A woman of Yahweh that's not being controlled by the enemy. But if you find a wrong woman, you're just asking for trouble. Remember the signs that you're ignoring. The sign, the big sign, when everyone's looking at the sign that says, I'm available, take me, you see the sign that says, I'm danger, run from me. Stop ignoring the signs. The same thing, women. If the man's not leading the right way, or the man's not treating you the right way, take it to Yahweh. We pray to Yahweh to get sick from diseases. We pray to Yahweh for all these different prayers. Well, why don't we think Yahweh can change the heart of a person and the situation of a person? Hallelujah. And he can, and he will. But we must understand this. So I see many men getting themselves in this situation where they come out of a relationship and they're just, and not just men coming out of a relationship, but even men that are looking for women today, and they're just engulfed with the beauty or the sexiness of a woman, and they don't read the sign, the danger sign, in big red letters, the danger sign, keep away. And recently I was with a bunch of men and women on a panel, and one of the women that got on the panel was a young woman who was dressed immodestly, and to a degree maybe even acting immodestly, and danger signs written all over this situation. And I was just one click away to getting this woman out of there. But as I observed this and observed the so-called men of Yahweh just losing their minds and just starting to give attention to these immodest situation and immodest women like this, and start saying things like, oh, if I had a woman like this, I'd be so blessed. Or if I had a woman like this, no. That's the enemy. That's the enemy. And he's using the visual appearance of that woman to make you say this crazy stuff about these women you don't even know. And yes, I know it's a natural desire for a man to procreate, not just with a woman, but an attractive woman. But the real question is, what is attractiveness? And doesn't the scriptures say the true beauty of a woman comes out by her inner character? So a woman should be attractive, but that should be her true beauty, not her worldly hooring and a sexiness that'll say a woman can walk down, a man walking down the street and he sees a woman with her sly glances could make a woman, a man just go to death like an ox going to the slaughter. Oh, my husband's out of town, let's go up to my house and he's going to be away for a long time and let's sleep together and make love all night and all this stuff. And men will go because they have that Solomon spirit of just looking at the outer appearance and not understanding the true beauty that Yahweh says that comes from the inside. This is the most common trick and of the devil out there today, and has brought so many people and so many families to destruction. And I'm warning you not to let that happen. And I am telling you, if you are considering or even in a relationship with a woman that has these warning signs and these red flags, don't try to fix it. Run. Now, if you're in a marriage, it's a different story. If you're in a marriage, you have to make and stick to your commitment you made to Yahweh, but you need to be running to that prayer room and you need to be praying without ceasing to the highest degree. And watch what Yahweh would do and make that situation right one way or the other. And I only say this because I know many of you out there have contacted me and expressed your situations that you're going through and what's happening in your lives. Now, I know there's a lot of women that have issues as well, thinking they found alpha man, and they realize they haven't found an alpha man or a man of Yahweh, and that's another teaching, another time, and another situation. But I'm trying to warn you men out there here of making these wise decisions. And you need to protect your eyes, and you need to have a heart for modesty, and you need to understand modesty, even though it comes from the inner beauty, or it's not just an outer thing, but still just like the devil with that apple and the appearance of that fruit, whether it was an apple or a fig or whatever it was, it's the same thing. How he presents to us the deception of a woman with her fake up and mimicking the woman of heat and all this stuff I'm telling you about. You need to make the right choice. And you need to understand the importance of this. You won't hear people say this and admit this, but it's our fault, our mistake, and our Solomon spirit that's going to just be like, I use that word Solomon spirit. It's really not a spirit of Solomon. It's more of the spirit of the enemy. Because you got the Rahadah Kodesh and you got the spirit of the enemy. But Solomon was engulfed by the spirit of the enemy, where he was just looking for just as many women to sleep with, without the desire that Yahweh had to so-called to be fruitful and multiply, and to sleep with all these women of the world. That's of the enemy. That's not of Yahweh. Yahweh has put us in a situation, and when we're following the Ruach HaKodesh, we'll be led to the right woman, one woman, and we'll be able to be fruitful and multiply with them if that is so Yahweh's desire. Now, in no way am I trying to discourage or make somebody feel bad as if they're in a relationship and they have not yet have any offspring. Matter of fact, in reading, Genesis, we look at the situation and the trials of Abraham, and we see Isaac, who prayed for Rebekah because they were married 20 years without any children. And then Abraham and Sarah married even longer without any children. And these were some of the greatest people of Yahweh. So just because you don't or have not been able to conceive a child does not mean you are not blessed and favored by Yahweh. And in no way am I trying to say that. I'm talking about the desire, your goal. Abraham and Isaac were not happy that they were not able to have children. They were content. They loved Yahweh, but they still had that desire, the offspring. And the culture today is making us feel good about not having children. And that's an issue. But if it so be Yahweh puts us in a situation where we don't have children, we accept it like they did. We definitely don't do what Abraham did and go out of the marriage and try to seek it a different way. That could just asking for trouble. We have to stick to what the scriptures teach us about Yahweh and being led by the Hadak Kodesh, and we should feel good, about it, even if you're not able to have a child, but it's that desire that's lost today and gone today. But it's also that same desire that's for children that gets us in trouble, because of the deception of the woman and the alpha and male thing, as I'm talking about here. So we have to be able to understand this, and praise Yah that will, especially the young men out there today that are just so deceived. And then, like I see in this situation, that I see is the young men as well. The older men as well. If you go to church today, you see all the men flocking over and falling over the woman that's half naked, wearing a miniskirt, walking in there. Well, the women that are modest and head covered are sitting there, and they're like, they're thinking, well, if that's going to get their attention, well, I'll just go dress like that. If that's what's going to catch these men or get these men, I'm just going to, I'm going to stoop down to that level. But a true woman of Yahweh won't do that. A true woman of Yahweh will wait for a true man of Yahweh, or at least a man that's truly be led by Yahweh's spirit, because those men that are flocking over the women that are immodest are not being led by Yahweh's spirit. And I'll say it again. Any man that misses the sign that says, danger, keep away from me, you are not following Yahweh's spirit. You're following a different spirit, a spirit of the enemy. It's not a good thing. It's a wicked thing. Very wicked thing. And this is a tremendous spiritual warfare that's going on out there today. A tremendous spiritual warfare. And I wish somebody would have told me this when I was younger and shown me this when I was younger. And sadly, I had to go outside the community of believers and Bible teachers and so on to realize these things about immodesty and makeup and money and relationships and all these different things, to really realize how the enemy is using men and women to go against his desires and his will versus their selfish desires and so on. And yes, understand this, men, it is better to be alone than to be with the wrong woman. Please understand that. It is better to be alone than to be with the wrong woman, or to be with a woman that's led by the enemy and not of Yahweh. And be patient on Yahweh. It's just like I said, if you're in a relationship and you're not able to conceive, not to, this isn't to discourage you or to make you feel down. Yahweh has great things for those people. Maybe they're being in ministry all around the world and Yahweh's using them in different ways. I say that too to the single person that's not able to find a mate, that's not able to find a spouse. The same exact thing. Don't be discouraged. Don't be down. Yahweh has his time and his plan, and he could have the greatest plans for you out there today. And the world today is trying to force people into quick marriages and everything else, but they don't want them to conceive, and it's just a confusing backwards thing where Yahweh says, be patient. Wait for the right person. Don't rush it. But when the right person comes along, enjoy it and understand the greatness that Yahweh says, well, two can do more than one, but one can do more than two also in certain areas. Just trust Yahweh in every different area, in every area we're talking about. As his word says, to be fruitful and multiply. To understand the hardship of the desire of man and creation and Adam, and then we look at the deception with Eve, and then we look at the idea of the enemy getting in there. We look at the desire of Abraham and Isaac, and how they had to wait for this. And then we can go all through the scriptures and look at all the scriptures with Jacob and a situation he had. Very fruitful, multiply, but he had this issue because he had too much of a good thing, so to say. But it was Yahweh's plan and establishment. And we go through all the scriptures And then we go to, like we said, we look at Samson and his relationship, and how Samson had the desires of this world, or the spirit of the enemy, like the Solomon spirit, so to say. And we look at King Solomon himself, and then we look at David, and we look at the kings and the harems they had, but the ideas behind it was often to have more children and to make a new king, and so on. And we go all through it, and then we look at all the situations out there, and we look at in the book where I forget the prophet's name now, had the wife who was a prostitute, and he was told not to go anywhere and to stay there and to stick it out, and so on. And we go all through it, all through the scriptures. The scriptures, the Bible, are a book of relationships, and we must handle this with the greatest care, because we understand from the beginning of time, from creation, Yahweh had a plan for us, and he still has a plan for us. And we go all the way through the end times, he has a plan for us. To know the plans I have for you, there for good and not disaster, to give us a future and give us a hope. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. May something I said here be helped you and opened up your understanding about things. You can contact me through my website anytime for questions, TorahLifeMinistries.org, TorahLifeMinistries.org. We do live prayer every morning if you need prayer or guidance, on our website, on our YouTube page, Torah Life Ministries. We're there every morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time, except Sabbath, we do it a little bit later. Every Friday night, we have live fellowship from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern time on our YouTube page, Torah Life Ministries. And we need to think about these issues more, and I pray that we get a better understanding of this. I've seen many situations when it comes to relationships. As a young man, and choosing the wrong relationships, as being married and being in a situation where it wasn't of Yahweh, and as being a single person of an older age, and now as being remarried with a woman of Yahweh, and finally getting this area right in my life. And I'm here to help you through my trials and errors, and hopefully you will learn these different things. So please contact me with questions.
Torah Life Ministries, come out of the world. Messiah people, seek the truth.